Coffee. I may have to do a fundraiser for the channel to get a new PC. Helping people, newbies, with some forms of Linux, at least to help them with their older PCs. I think brings me an immense sense of satisfaction and joy to help someone out there who doesn't want to use Windows anymore and wants to try Linux. It's great. Linux is really great for older PCs. Just some of the Linux is absolutely just stunning. But editing videos on outdated hardware, Linux, well, it isn't just Linux. It just sucks. It's not the fault of Linux. It's just outdated processors, outdated computers that just are not made to handle heavy video loads. Anything else, Linux on an older PC is fantastic. So if you have not tried that already, and you have a computer laying around and you don't want to upgrade to Windows 11, yes, you should definitely try some forms of Linux. Just keep in mind that if you wanted to do video editing on an older PC, Linux may help a little bit, but yeah, it's kind of like you need to tow a boat and you need an 8-cylinder truck, but you have a 4-cylinder Honda Civic. It's not going to work. Anyway, happy Sunday. Hope all of you are doing well. So for today's podcast, we'll talk about choose Windows if blah, blah, blah. Choose Linux if blah, blah, blah. Hopefully, this will help someone who is new to the world of Linux. For this morning, we're using Linux Mint, the Mate version. And for those of you watching this, let me just transition here and show you real quick. This is the now classic Mint menu. It's great. It's simple. It works. This is on a machine from 2013. It is a gateway. Maxed out with 8 gigs of RAM, which is perfectly fine for a machine like this. So we'll talk about Linux versus Windows and try to cut through some of the, confusing information that is out there. Hopefully this will help out someone. I've been using Linux almost 20 years now, as some of you know. And I would not consider myself an expert on Linux because I don't use just Linux. I still use Windows about 20% of the time, just to keep abreast of what's going on in the Windows world and compare that to at least some forms of Linux. All right, let's transition here. Just a quick guide here on the screen. All right, choose Windows if, all right, you are a gamer. You want better gaming support, AMD, NVIDIA drivers, compatibility with all major games. Yes, it has gotten better with Linux. There's no question. Absolutely. But it's just not the same. Not yet. A lot of it has to do with display drivers. There's been talk about Wayland display driver. That started off in 2008, still not ready. What can I say? If you are you love gaming, you can try Linux. But it's not the same as Windows. It just isn't, and it may or may not work for you. Of course, in Windows, you don't have to worry about gaming, right? All right, choose Windows if, while your job, you work in a corporate environment, you need Windows-based software applications for daily operations for your job. That's completely understandable. Maybe you can use Linux at home, personal use, but at your job you can't, and that's okay. You can certainly dual boot. Do it on 2 separate SSDs if on the same PC. If you don't want to do that, pick up a ThinkPad. ThinkPads and Linux are a perfect marriage. I've tested them multiple times on different ThinkPads. I have Linux on a ThinkPad that originally had Windows XP. No joke. Windows XP ThinkPad still runs. ThinkPads are like Lexus cars. Those cars keep going and going. And those ThinkPads keep going and going. So if you wanted to try Linux as a full install, just pick up a refurbished ThinkPad and you are good to go. All right, choose Windows if you need proprietary software like Adobe Photoshop and more. Yeah, you could try GIMP. in Linux. It may be good enough, but it's not the same. So again, if you need specific software in Windows, again, completely understandable. That's why you want two separate machines is best. One for your Linux, like a ThinkPad, and one for your normal Windows PC. Choose Windows if you never, ever want to use the Linux terminal. As soon as I mention terminal to a Windows newbie, Linux newbie, game over, man, game over. I ain't doing that. It's not that hard, but I get it. Years ago, I was also hesitant and scared. The only Linux machine that I can guarantee that you will never, ever have to use the terminal is a Chromebook. And maybe Chromebook is enough for you. I don't know. Chromebooks are great. They're cheap, affordable, reliable, Gen 2 Linux powered. So if you don't want to ever use the terminal, I can't really promise you that in Linux unless you get a Chromebook. Finally, choose Windows if you were misled or lied to in the past. Somebody said Linux is easy, and you tried Arch Linux or Gentoo, and you were like, what the bleep is this? Nothing wrong with those, but perhaps it is best to say some Linux is easy. Some. A very small percentage, like 1%, is easy for Windows users. So when somebody says Linux is easy, some Linux is easy. Please don't say Linux sucks. If you tried Arch or something like that, Linux Mint, Zorn OS, Ubuntu Mate, and a few more, that is easy. That is absolutely true. But it has to preface it to say some Linux is easy, or 1% of Linux is easy, and you're good to go. Okay? Capiche? All right. Choose Linux if you prefer customization, control, and like to tweak everything. Then Linux is fantastic. Keep in mind, the more you customize and tweak, the more of a chance something is going to break. If you don't care about that, then sure, you don't want to use Windows. That's not for customization. Choose Linux if you like to tweak and customize and don't mind if something breaks and reinstall. I've done this many times in the past, but that's how I learned. By purposely breaking something and then trying to fix it. Sometimes things cannot be fixed, so you reinstall, but hey, it's, Linux is free to install and try. So choose Linux if you like to customize and tweak everything. Need to make some more coffee. Okay. Choose Linux if you prefer privacy. That is true if you stay off the web. There is no privacy on the web. However, Linux has much less telemetry and data gathering. 100% true. But if you think if you use Linux, you will be private on the web, well, I don't know of any way to delete yourself off the web and start over. To completely delete your data off the web and start over. It's not going to matter once you get on the internet. It won't matter if you use Windows or Linux. Those are the facts. I hate it, but it is what it is. However, if you prefer to control your data and the amount of you on the web, you don't want Windows. You definitely want to choose Linux. Just keep in mind, do not put in your head if you're using Linux, you are now private. No. If you stay off the web, sure, but then you're here, so. I know, it's a catch-22. All right, choose Linux if you need a lightweight operating system for older hardware. As I stated, if you have a 10-year-old PC or whatever, or even older, there's no question Linux is the way to go. Yes, you can install Windows on an older PC. I've done it 3 times. You have to de-bloat it. But there's a lot of tweaking involved, a lot of work. And maybe you don't care, you don't mind, and that's fine. But in general, you don't want to install Windows on an older PC. It's going to take time. Do Linux, some Linux. It's going to work. Just keep in mind if you have outdated computers with older processors, if you do any kind of video podcasting or editing, it's going to be slow. It's going to be faster with Linux, but not as fast. Trust me, I'm doing it now, and it's great to refurb older computers and keep them around, but for video editing, it's not good. All right. Last but not least, you like to distro hop. Distro hop means I'll try Arch today, Linux Mint tomorrow, Ubuntu Mate the next day, Fedora. You're hopping from one Linux OS to another because you like to experiment. And that is, again, that is fantastic. Great, because that's how I learned, self-taught. It is time-consuming. If you have the time, you want to do Linux if you enjoy distribution, hopping from one Linux-based system to another. That's probably the best way to learn Linux, is just force yourself to learn, to make mistakes, to learn, to move on. And maybe in the end, after all this, Linux is still not for you. That's okay. I use both. I use Windows about 20% of the time, Linux, different forms of Linux such as Linux Mint, Zorin, Ubuntu on different PCs, older PCs, keep them alive with Linux. So there's nothing wrong with going from one Linux distribution to another. Just keep in mind, in general, you'll be bug hopping from one distribution to another. Not as much now, it's gotten better. But if you really want to learn, have yourself a spare machine like a ThinkPad, or refurbished one for about $200 is perfectly fine with 8 gigs of RAM, and you will learn more distro hopping, making mistakes with Linux. Not too many Windows users probably have patience like I did and do, but I learned. I self-taught, and that's why after taking so many years of punishment, I can give it to you straight as a Windows user, what works and what doesn't work. And I'm kind of proud of that. Just keep in mind, if you have an older computer and you install Linux, it'll run a little faster, but for like video stuff and like that, it's not going to run that much faster. You just need more horsepower. And for that, you're just going to have to get a faster PC in today's world. All right, let me grab some more coffee here and I'll check the chat. All right, Giuseppe's in the house. Buongiorno. All right, you installed Arch. Oh, wow, on a testing PC to try Plasma 6, and it's great so far. Yeah, if you like to tinker and use the terminal, Arch is the way to go. I've used Arch-based in the past. It was not for me. Yeah. But sure, if you like to have complete control and complete customization and tinkering and want to use the terminal, Arch is definitely the way to go. But I'm not going to tell my next door neighbor to try Linux installing Arch. She will never speak to me again. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with Arch if you like to tweak and customize and all that stuff. I think Arch is fantastic. But I tried Arch Base years ago with Manjaro. It was not a pleasant experience. Yeah, when I try to reach out to 1 billion Windows users, Arch is not the way to go, as you know. Now, maybe after some experience and stuff like that, you can certainly try Arch. But I still think it's best to stick with your Linux Mints of the world and Zorin OS and similar for a Linux newbie. Well, Kubuntu has the Plasma desktop by default, right? Debian is also good for starting off fresh if you have experience. I've done Debian in the past and added software as I went along, but for Debian for newbies, unless maybe Linux Mint Debian Edition might be easier for newbies. Yeah, but I will not say Debian is for Windows users as a fresh install. I will say this, and I've mentioned this before, I will say that it is encouraging to stop here at a local Walmart. And believe me, this is not a tech town. I mentioned Chromebook to someone, and they were like, um, oh, stop it. It was encouraging to stop at a local Walmart. And I believe they had 8 different Chromebooks for sale to choose from. Yeah, I mean that's nice. Now, I'm sure the employees there and the consumers have no clue that it's based off a form of Linux, but that's okay. The fact that they have them means that they are selling them, and people are at least curious about it. Maybe I should walk in there with the sign, hey, if you're curious about Chromebooks, go to Total OS today and learn about Chromebooks or something like that. But it is encouraging to walk into a local Walmart here in a steel mill town and see multiple Chromebooks for sale at a Walmart. Now, yes, they have Windows and Mac stuff, and again, it's all about a choice, but I was pleasantly surprised, Joseph, to see that at a local Walmart here. Yeah, I don't know how many they. Maybe next time I walk in there, I'll ask someone if they sell any Chromebooks or how many. That would be interesting to know. My latest install was Lubuntu and Ubuntu, 2 separate machines. Ubuntu is something I like to tinker with terminal commands to tweak it. So if I want to tinker, I install Ubuntu. If I don't want to tinker again, then just go with the Linux Mint or Zorin OS. I need to, tomorrow morning I got an appointment with the chiropractor. I need to go there after surgery for a tune-up. I love that electrical stimulation machine they have. What's it called? The TENS machine for my lower back? Oh, yeah. Anyway. Ugh. Ice packs also work. All right, I'll stick around for a little bit longer. If there's anybody else watching who happens to be new to all this and would like to say hello or have a question, please do. Please don't be shy. It's always, again, like I said, it's always a pleasure talking to somebody new and maybe who has a question or maybe who I've helped out in the past. One of the nicest comments I ever got was, "God bless you. This was exactly what I needed." I forget what the video was, but that was such a joy to read that. So if there's somebody new watching this by chance this morning, early morning, and has a question, or just wants to say hello, you don't have to give out your real name, please do. I do these podcasts at different times to try to catch people in different time zones. So anyway. Oh, wow, you are using Wayland by default? No kidding. Man, it's just not ready, Joseph. The only screencaster, screen recorder I can use with Wayland is OBS Studio. Nothing wrong with OBS, but I have found out my machine runs slower with Wayland. It sputters than with X11. So, hey, if it works for you, great. Now, maybe if I had a brand new machine, that might be different. I don't know. But Wayland has been in development since 2008. I mean, that's almost 20 years, so maybe it'll be ready the next 20 years. I don't know. If it works, use it. I don't think Linux Mint Mate has Wayland support. I think they're going to hold off, and that's smart. I think Cinnamon does. But you may find that Wayland is not quite there yet. Okay, so Wayland runs good on Plasma. Okay, cool. Yeah, if it works, great. with Ubuntu, I can switch back and forth between Wayland and just X11, and at least on a dual core, X11 is better. I'm still waiting to see when Ubuntu will have word on the immutable version of Ubuntu. It was supposed to be released last year, was postponed. I'm curious because, you know, Chromebooks have perfected that. And how well would Ubuntu work with an immutable system? That seems to be the latest craze now in Linux. Of course, it's not new for Chromebooks, but yeah, that should be interesting. I did take a look at the latest Cosmic Desktop from Pop! OS. Honestly, there was no wow factor there for me, so I'm not really that interested. But we'll see. Yes, Fedora has an immutable version. Yes. I just cannot recommend Fedora for newbies. But yes, that, and I think there's another one, right? Can't remember. Vanilla OS. Yes, I think you are correct. I think I tried one of those. Tried to anyway last year, and I couldn't boot off the USB, or I couldn't try running it in a USB environment. It was so disappointing, so I let it go. It looks like I'm getting messages from a friend of mine on my phone. Let's see what's up here. Okay. All right. Forced flat packs are not your thing. I don't like anything forced as a choice. It's fine. I have noticed in Ubuntu at least, flat packs seem to work a little better maybe than snaps. But I generally try to avoid flat packs, snaps, and app images when I can. But sometimes they do work. The app image for Kdenlive works pretty good. I guess you don't know until you try, right? Yeah. You may have noticed, you may have seen the video from PewDiePie trying Linux. I think it's gotten like 6.3 trillion views comparing Linux with Windows. He made fun of Windows, perhaps in some ways deservedly so. He says something like, well, Windows likes to spoon feed you, handhold you. Would you like to do this? Would you like to play Candy Crush? Would you like to click go? Well, I can make fun of Linux users too, like, oh, the little bugs hurt you. Are you afraid of bugs in Linux? No, don't be scared. I mean, you know, I guess the making fun of works both ways, so. Yeah, with Plucky Puffin, I've had to, you know, there is no click to minimize by default. You have to enable the Chrome shell extension for extensions in the terminal. I have to use the terminal to increase screen timeout time. You know, for a system that's designed for Windows users, there's a lot of terminal commands to be used to really make it more functionable for Windows users. Ubuntu looks great, but is it for newbies? No, absolutely not. Just too much work involved, and like I said, the moment you mention terminal to a Windows user, game over. Or as what's his name said in the movie Aliens, Bill Paxton, game over, man, game over. Yep. I was window shopping for computers. I don't know if the terrorists have kicked in yet. I was looking at Ryzen 7s. Yeah, KDE is probably more beginner friendly than them. I haven't done KDE in a long time, but overall, well, with KDE you don't need extensions, so yeah. Zorin OS has probably done the best job with GNOME extensions pre-built that don't crash, right? All right, I think I'm going to wrap this up so I can finish doing the editing. I wish I could do this and edit at the same time, but the processor here would just choke. So Joseph, always great to have you here. Yeah, no one else here in the chat, so I'll wrap this up. If you came in late, of course, you can replay this. If you prefer to listen to these with no ads, interruptions, you can go to the Patreon page. You can download these in audio format. Also helps out the channel. So Joseph, take care. Have fun with your Arch KDE. I'll catch everyone on the next one. Peace out. Take care.